Hey guys, how's it going? It's Keith here. Happy New Year to you. So today I want to talk about Star Wars The Force Awakens. So firstly, I'd like to throw out a massive disclaimer for those of you who have not seen The Force Awakens and want to see it. There will be a lot of spoilers in this video, so if you have not seen The Force Awakens, you probably shouldn't watch this video if you don't want the entire movie spoiled on you. So I've actually seen The Force Awakens twice at this point, and I have to say, even after seeing it for the second time, I love it even more. The first time I saw it in real 3D, and then the second time I went to see it, I saw it in IMAX, which is a really incredible experience, especially for a Star Wars movie. When you're sitting there in the audience in the cinema and you see those opening credits just shoot right at you in your face, it looks pretty damn incredible. The most striking thing about this movie when you first start watching it is in the opening credits it contains the line, "Luke Skywalker is missing," and this really sets the bar for the movie because you really start to kind of wonder, what has caused Luke Skywalker to go missing? Has he been captured? What exactly has happened? All these questions start building up. There are three things you should take into consideration about The Force Awakens. Number one is that while this movie contains a lot of the main characters from the original franchise, it is very much about passing on the torch to the newer characters like Rey, Finn, Poe, and even the villain Kylo Ren. Number two, while The Force Awakens is very much about Rey, it is also about the search for Luke Skywalker. And number three, and possibly the most important point to take into consideration for The Force Awakens, and indeed the entire saga, after all, this is the 7th chapter of a huge story, and that is history repeats itself. If you compare any major world war with another major world war, you'll see that this is so very true. The only difference is it's different players, different circumstances, and basically bigger weapons. And you really do see this in The Force Awakens, from the Death Star to their newer and bigger version of the Death Star. You know, slightly different players, bigger weapons, history repeats itself. And it's a point that I will really rally on about for The Force Awakens, because it is such an important, vital point to be making. The reason why I make this point is that some of the criticism online about The Force Awakens happens to be mostly surrounded or claiming that The Force Awakens is a little bit too similar to A New Hope. Some people going as far as to say that it's practically a remake to A New Hope. And well, it's not. It is telling a different story. As I said before, the story is about the search for Luke Skywalker. And it's very important to take into account that history repeats itself. Yes, we do have a Death Star in the original trilogy, and then we've got a much bigger Death Star, or version of a Death Star, in the new movie. And yes, in The Force Awakens we do have a central character who discovers that the light side of the Force is strong within her, similar to Luke Skywalker of the original trilogy, and kind of similar enough to Anakin Skywalker of the prequel trilogies. And yes, just like the original trilogy, we do have a villain who is related to one of the central characters. In this case, the villain is called Kylo Ren. His original name is Ben Solo, which makes him Han Solo's son. And it's up to Han to turn him back to the light side of the Force. The importance to why all of these similarities exist in this particular episode, they exist partially because it's kind of a way to give homage to the original trilogy, and it is a way of illustrating that history repeats itself. You've got to take into consideration, this is the 7th chapter of this story, as I have already pointed out. The 7th chapter, it is a huge saga. There's very few movie franchises that have this many parts to it, this many sequels or prequels, depending on your point of view in the episode order. So of course you're going to have that aspect of history repeating itself, because that's how life is. So let's talk about BB-8 actually for a moment. I think it makes perfect sense for there to be advancement in the droids. You know, it's like the way technology works. You know, you look at technology that we have now, like the mobile phone. You know, when the mobile phone first came out, it was this big blocky thing that you could only send and receive phone calls, and then they introduced text messages, and then mobile internet, and then smartphones, and now we've got, you know, better smartphones like the iPhone 6 and the Galaxy S3 or whatever Android users are using these days. The point is, though, technology evolves and changes, and it makes perfect sense that the droids in the sequel trilogy would be a little bit more advanced than RTD2. But another criticism was that RTD2 looks kind of irrelevant and obsolete and clumsy. I don't think it is. It is older technology, essentially. But if you actually look at the way RTD2 was depicted in the prequel trilogies, that he kind of had this sort of jet funnel sort of thing where he could kind of fly a little bit. I think that they need to sort of play around with that a little bit more in the sequel trilogies, so that he doesn't look quite so bulky. But I did really like the whole aspect of BB-8 and RTD2 working together and combining the map that was stored in RTD2's backup systems and the one that's stored on that kind of memory stick thing that that Poe puts into BB-8, and then the two holographic maps combined together. That was like a pretty awesome moment, and yeah, it was pretty cool. The last bit of criticism about Force Awakens I found quite flawed, actually, was some people found it unbelievable, or a little bit hard to believe, that Finn was able to break his indoctrination from the First Order. And I gotta say, it's really not that unbelievable. Especially for someone like me. You know, I'm an ex-Catholic, and I was Catholic for 18 years, and then, you know, it got to a certain point where I just didn't believe it anymore, because I questioned certain things, and I just didn't believe it anymore. And, you know, that's the best way I can explain it. It's not rare for people from an organized religion to decide, wait a second, I don't believe in this anymore. And you can use that as an analogy for the first order if you want to. I would imagine it would be the same sort of process where, you know, you would get a few stormtroopers who would decide, you know what? Actually, I don't agree with this anymore. I need to find a way to get out of this thing, and that's exactly what I think happened to Finn. He obviously had some different points of view, and, you know, tried to hide it for a little while, up to a point of where he couldn't hide it anymore. And then he obviously decided, well, you know, I can't lie about this anymore. I just can't. And he wanted to do everything and anything he can to escape from the First Order. So it's really not that unbelievable. It's extremely plausible. All you have to do is look at any organized religion and look at all of the atheists and agnostics and deists that these organized religions have created. It happens all the time. It's really not that unbelievable. It's not far-fetched at all. It's actually one of the most sensible things in this movie. In a way, it is actually kind of making a political statement about organized religion in a way, which is actually very clever. So I thought that criticism of that point was kind of a fallacy when you think about it. Regarding my speculation on who Rey is and how she happens to have the light side of the Force within her, I think that it is a strong possibility that she could be Luke's daughter. I think that maybe he had a wife that was not mentioned. Maybe his wife died, possibly. That's a possibility. Some people are saying that she could have been Leia and Han's second child, like possibly a twin to Ben or to Kylo Ren, which could be a possibility, and I guess that would make them the new Luke and Leia of the sequel trilogy, which would be interesting. I will predict that in episodes 8 and 9 we are going to see less similarities to a very larger extent, because after all, it is a different story. So I don't think that we're going to see as much similarities. I think Kylo Ren is going to get more powerful, he's going to get more malicious, he's going to become more dark. Whether he'll come back to the light side of the Force, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But all in all, I really do like this installment of Star Wars, and I really love the new characters, even Kylo Ren, Rey, Finn, and even Poe. I would have liked to have seen Poe a little more. He seems like an interesting character. The main thing I was kind of disappointed with in this movie was the fact that you only see Luke Skywalker at the very end of the movie. But I understand with, you know, the whole concept of this story, it is about the search for Luke Skywalker, so it kind of had to be that way. I guess it really makes me look forward to Episode 8 to see Luke's involvement in the continuation of the story. I think it's going to be pretty amazing, actually. So that is my opinion on Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. I thought it was a really amazing movie. If you haven't already seen it, I'm sorry if I spoiled that for you. Or if you have already seen it, you should see it again. Because it's just one of those movies that you just want to see again and again. I've already seen it twice. I may actually see it a third time before it goes out of the cinema, because it was really amazing. And if you didn't get the chance to see it in IMAX, you should see it in IMAX. It is a little bit more expensive, but it's definitely worth it if you have an IMAX movie theater near you. It's really amazing. We only have one in Dublin, but it's definitely worth it to see it in IMAX. It's just such an incredible experience, especially when you're, as I said, when you're seeing that opening credits jump right in your face. It's pretty amazing. So let me know what you think of this movie, of Star Wars The Force Awakens. Check down below in the description area. There will be a link for you to leave a video response if you so wish. And thanks for watching, and take care.